We're going to take a look at the complete sharp fast sharpening system. This system is for sharpening wood turning tools, gouges, and also flat tools such as scrapers and other woodworking tools, chisels, and plane irons. First, let's take a look at the base that we have designed for this system. We designed it with the side open so that the debris from grinding does not get trapped and foul the slide arm in there. Also in this, we have included a place for storage for the hex wrenches that you may need to use for adjustments on the system. They don't get lost in debris. You know where they are all the time. Also on this base, we have holes for mounting that are slotted so that you can adjust this very easily. It's very important that it be centered on the wheel so that you get balanced tools that are sharpened evenly. We also have a V-notch at either end that if you draw a line through what would be the center of the wheel, those will indicate that you have the base centered. Next, we'll look at the slide arm. The slide arm simply slides into the base, and the holder for the tool slides into this bronze bushing. We used bronze. It should last for a lifetime. We have also included a pin in here that simply stops this from rotating around when it's not in use and having the tool holder fall out. So it's just an added feature that we have there. And then we'll take a look at the tool holder. There are several components. We have a lock collar which adjusts the height. The head which holds the turning tools can be rotated. We also have this sliding feature which is a gauge used to determine how far the tool extends out of the holder, and it must be consistent each time, and this is adjustable for infinite lengths, and it is stored in this tool so that it's always there and handy for you. The hold down for the tool is a bearing, and because of the size it will hold up to a 3/4 inch gouge. Now we'll go on and take a look at how to set this up and the adjustments to get various grinds on your tools. All right, we have our system set up now in the grinder. The base is centered, we have the slide arm in place, and I have a tool in the holder. And what I want to do is talk about the various adjustments that we have to make to this system in order to use it and create the kind of grind that we want on the tool. The first thing is this lock collar, and very simply when we place this into the holder and the tool comes to the wheel, we want the tool to strike the wheel at or just slightly above center. And so that's where we adjust this collar. Depending on the height of our grinder, we can adjust it in or out to make the tool fall there. That's the only time you adjust it, and once it's set, we never need to change it again. It stays at that point. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have this gauge for setting the length of the tool extended from the front of this. We have also included another one that's built in on this base, and you simply can bring the face of the holder up against here and the tool will touch this. The difference with it, it's not adjustable. One side gives you 2-inch extension, the other side gives you 1 3/4 inch extension. It's just locked. What we have found is some folks like being able to adjust that distance to exactly what they want. Others want it fixed and prefer that style. They are both available for you. Now, the next thing that we are going to look at is this distance is set. I'm using 2 inches. Again, that really doesn't make any very little difference in the shape of the tool or have any effect on it. It just needs to be consistent. Now, the other thing that we have in this head, there is a hole that goes through with a notch on the sides. That's the setting that will give you a grind that looks like the one that is on this tool now. It's kind of middle of the road. It's not real short and it's not a real long pulled back grind. That's the neutral setting. With that setting, it will give us this grind. Very simply, I just rotate the tool from one side to the other side, and you'll find with this system it is going to give you very consistent grinds around the tool. Now, something else as I continue to do this, because this is fixed on the pivot point, the tool cannot wander off the side of the wheel, which some systems can do, which can be very dangerous, and it makes it more difficult to get that consistency that we can get with this grinding system. As you can see, very, very simple to use, and it gives us very consistent grinds on our tools very, very easily. Now I'm going to take this one out and pick up another one that has been adjusted slightly differently. On this particular tool, the grind is much shorter, more blunt on the end. So with it, what I have adjusted is the angle of this head. Again, we don't need to move the lock collar, we don't need to make other changes. So what I have done in this case to make this shorter is actually lowered the handle of the tool, so that I've moved it about half the notch in this case, which gives us a tool, again, if I grind it, that will look very much like this. And there's our tool with that nice short grind on it with just simply that adjustment. Now, the last one that we will look at is that long side grind that is preferred by a large number of turners, with the grind coming further down. To achieve that, very simply, all I have done now from that neutral position is raise the handle, again about half the notch. It makes that much difference in the shape of the tool. Now in this case, the angle is also different, and so we have to make that adjustment. We adjust for the angle on the end of the tool and the sides by sliding the slide arm in and out. We do not change this length or the angle of the head to do that. It is just the slide arm to give us contact here with the wheel. And now, again, just by the same motion I had before, I simply rotate this around. And now, instead of the shorter grind or the middle grind, we get the long grind on the side of the tool. Just as easy as the others, it just is determined by the shape you want to give your tool. That, again, is done by adjusting the head and pivoting it. That's all we have to do to make those adjustments for these tools. Now we'll take a look at spindle tools, much the same, but we can look at how we adjust it again for doing spindle tools. All right, now we're going to look at spindle gouges, again with the neutral setting, the notch and the hole lined up, tool extended to the standard length. We can create this fingernail grind on spindle gouges at that neutral setting, and you just rotate it from side to side, and that's going to give you that grind, which is very commonly used on spindle tools. Now, another grind that we would put on a spindle gouge is for hollowing end grains, such as boxes and goblets and that sort of thing. And we want a much shorter, more blunt grind for that kind of use. Again, in doing that, we put the tool in the holder the same, but we lower the handle. Again, about half a notch on there seems to be fine for this shape that I was after. And then again, I just rotate this around, and it will give me that very blunt grind instead of that long grind that we had created on the other spindle gouge. So that's the system. Again, very simple, only a couple of adjustments to make to give you very different shapes on the end of your tool and make them useful for lots of different projects. We're ready to look at the second part of the system now, and it's this flat grinding platform. You'll notice that it has a slot in it. We'll talk about what that's for in a moment. Couple of handles on the side, one to adjust the angle. Another we have in the front is to adjust the height of this system so that you can make this fall on center or slightly above on your wheel and match the height of your grinder. It fits into the base just as the other part of the system did. Everything's the same there, completely interchangeable. Now, the other thing that we have are these other components. this one sits in that slot that I mentioned. This has tabs that fit into that slot. That assures that this stays fixed when we're sliding it back and forth and the angles don't change. This particular attachment is for sharpening your skews. You simply put it in against one side and sharpen that angle, flip it to the other side and sharpen that side. Your angles are going to be completely consistent, and because the tool is resting on the piece that is sliding, it's very easy to hold it and be very consistent. We're not sliding it on this platform. With this, we actually have two of those. This particular one is at 22.5 degrees. This one is at 15 degrees. Different turners prefer two different angles on the end of their skew, so you can get either one with these. Another piece that we have for this system, again, sits in the same slot, moves side to side in the same way, and this is for sharpening your roughing gouges that are straight across the end. You simply put it in the V and then rotate the tool all the way around to grind it. And I will set this now for the angle on this one, and we'll touch this tool up, because this is something that makes this so much simpler than other systems for sharpening these square end gouges. And before this system, it wasn't very easy to keep the gouge square on the end, but now it is quite simple. You just rotate it around and it will keep that end nice and square and give you real consistent bevels on the tool. So it makes that much, much simpler. It will do these very large roughing gouges all the way down to a 3/4 with no problem. It all fits in there. Another component that we have that again fits in this same system is just this slide. This would be for doing those plane irons. Again, the plane iron sits in it and against one side or the other to be held square, and you simply slide it across the face of the wheel, keeping those perfectly square across the end. Without this kind of aid, very difficult to get a really square end on these plane irons. Also, many grinders like this, we have the platform wide to give us lots of support for sharpening, but if we try to do tools like these carpenter chisels, because of the way they are made with this curve on the back side, the platform actually gets in the way. When I rotate it up for that angle, now I can't get the tool to reach the grinding wheel. So we have this platform, and we actually have made another piece that sits on top of it. And now, with adjusting this a bit lower, I can now extend this tool right up to the grinding wheel with no problem and simply slide it across. So this little product will actually aid in sharpening those kinds of things. While we were doing that, we went ahead and put a couple of other things in there. We actually have a little V-notch and also a round in here. If you have scratch awls or center punches that you want to grind, you simply can put them in and rotate them around and get perfect points on the end of those using these little accessories in that piece. One last thing, it is very important when you're using the grinder that you keep the wheels dressed, both to keep good sharp surface on there and also so that it doesn't wear unevenly and grind your tools unevenly. So with this in place, you can take your wheel dresser and simply hold it on here and slide it back and forth across here, and it will keep this very square so that you know that the face of the wheel is staying perpendicular to all of the holders that you are applying to this. So this makes the complete system. We can sharpen our gouges, we can sharpen our chisels, we can do our scrapers, we can do all our tools with this complete system.